Okay. It is. It's a nice area. We enjoy it. I've got 15 years.
So more on the corporate area.
No, we actually want to. Kind of between the two, but our jurisdiction is a whole new part of Texas. Basically, balance all the way up. It's all changed now. Merged with immigration. So, yeah. Thank you. Will you guys be able to? Sure. My wife didn't like that. I believe that's your flip about that. I think he's the other one. Yeah. He bought into that one humidity and stuff. It had its days, but it wasn't. Houston's restaurants.
Yeah, as long as it's also. I'm guessing that's. Here's one of the materials. It's a double. It's hard to. The single is what the falls are in Houston are really nice and straight and nice.
Yeah.
You and the world are the same thing.
You got the work special.
Yeah. Our problem.
And shredded chicken.
We replaced noodles. They were shaped. But we had nail stones the size of softballs. And they.
You don't have a garage either.
Oh, we did.
And I got
Oh, yeah. And it was, you know, used cars after a hailstorm, they had a big sale. Oh, yeah.
As is.
I don't know. We had those,
Yeah, you guys got half and half each.
yeah.
And mine is not.
Do you have something show? Yeah, they moved there by 6 lines. So churches really strong there. No, it's in Dallas. It's over in Dallas. But there's gonna be an F now. You have to find an announcement. Nobody knows where. Maybe they have a place. It would be somewhere.
And here's the.
You got it. When you get your salary, I got it's a good tradition. A good tradition.
Go on there. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you need forks? Do you guys need forks and stuff?
Paul got them.
Okay. Drinks. There's water in the fridge. There's Coke. Dr. Pepper. White Dr. Pepper. Sparkling water.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, in the fridge, just in the kitchen.
Okay, great.
There's some stuff.
You know.
I respond to her. Not the whole group.
There's no.
Yes. Thank you, Wendy. My life process is the best. I just copied a couple of things from Murray City. Memphis, and it said, be short. The answer is no. That the Enforced by the HOA.
If you don't move the HOA, you need to order, organize one, or you have to take 24 and you're probably not done. And, the problem is, if the city doesn't want it all, then what about the one person you miss? You know what I mean?
I think it's illegal for the city to be involved. But I don't know.
Yeah, that seems odd to enforce something, the city.
Well, and here's the thing. That's one of the reasons that we want to go through all the rules of CCNRs and say, because they kind of grew up with the city. And so we need to go and find out, what do we want to talk about? With the environment. And it's one of the things we have to do the last 2 years, because somebody said that. Because, you know, we did things like crowing roosters in our neighborhood. Our nuisance, you know, and, but we haven't had time to do that. Right. But,
Well, that's a good thing.
but there are some, there are. She wants to put it in our city. But. we have to have time to do it.
Well, we have.
Well,
The
but-
plan comes back from revision.
yes, but I think, but it's one of the things. You know, I'm on the last 3 years.
But. Got some height on it.
Yeah, interesting, but you're just like, where are we?
I lived in Orem. And we had an HOA that kind of died. And then, and one of the parts of somebody built a house that was rebuilt, no garage. And they-
I'll share.
Sorry.
Right.
And so we reorganized our HOA. So that it's not, now I told you story. And I said, don't, do not do it for this one reason. You need to see CCR. And they went ahead and did it. And I'm like, this is what.
So the whole.
So how can the city just add?
Right, does he have any? The roads are- So
When you said he was on the board.
Yeah.
Janice.
There's water, there's.
Everybody else want water? It's raining up.
Yeah, maybe we're in trouble. The water?
Yes.
I was eating my that was not built bar. No. I know, but it's really good. And it's got like 16 grams of protein in it. No, they're really good.
I mean, flavor. Oh, they're interchangeable.
Ready, Judy?
I am ready.
Right, welcome everyone. We are convening a public hearing for the City Council bills. This is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. And our full count is here tonight. And I am Mayor. And we are here to hear public comment about 4 items that we're considering. The first item on the public hearing is to consider a change to 10-6A-1 to allow the planning commissioner alternate to vote. Wayne, you want to just explain a little bit more
about why we do that,
or
why
you like to?
Our current ordinance only allows the alternate to vote when they're one of 3 present to form a quorum. So the alternate participates if we need to fill the group of 5. So we're suggesting that he be allowed to vote when he's part of that group of 5 planning commissioners, not just when he's there to form a quorum. So that's what changes.
so do we have any member of the public
that would like to comment on this issue?
consideration?
When did you have your mic on?
I do. Can you not hear me?
Yeah, it's kind of muffled a little bit.
Okay, I'll put it right up by my mouth.
Close
Okay,
enough.
so we're hearing the comment on the change to allow the planning commissioner alternate to vote when they are filling in for a planning commissioner, not necessarily completing a quorum. Is there anybody, their hand raised on Zoom? I don't see anybody, but. Are we good? Okay. All right. There doesn't appear to be any comment on that issue, so we will move on to number 2, which is a consider the repeal of City Code 10-1-4 parenthesis B and 10-11-2 parenthesis C G. Jody, would you like to explain what that one is? Or Wayne?
These have to do with CCNRs that are in our current ordinance. And in as much as the city does not enforce CCNRs, we're removing those from the wording to indicate that our ordinance take precedent in our enforcement. The way that they have been worded in our code implies that the city would give deference to CCNRs compared to our ordinances. And we've talked to our attorneys about that in the past, and that is not the case. So we're changing the wording and removing one altogether that implies that. So the city will have nothing to do with enforcement of CCNRs, only our ordinances.
All right. Do we have any comment on that from the public? Nobody here in the room. Jody? Anybody online? Okay. Hearing no comment on that issue, we'll move on to number 3. Oh, we did get at least one comment, I think, to all the commission by email from Sharon Wright. Did everybody see that? Okay.
Was that an official, just a correspondence with us, or was it actually to be included in?
I don't know, but we'll include it. All right, number 3. Yes. Oh, did everybody receive that one?
No,
I did.
Well-
I saw it.
I didn't see it.
Yes, it was this afternoon, so
Okay,
maybe that we.
all right. We will make sure that everybody sees that. All right, number 3 is the consideration of ADU, the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. Do we have any public comment on that issue?
If I might add, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we've kind of modeled what we're proposing for a city ordinance after Salem's ordinance. So we've made a few changes to it. For example, one is they allow an ADU in a zone that's 6,000 square feet. We don't have that small a zone. So we reduced it to the R119 zone, which is 19,000 square feet. That's our smallest zone. So we don't have any zone restrictions. That's the smallest one, and that's the smallest one an ADU can be placed in, but they can be placed in others as well. So that's one change that we made to Salem's ordinance. There was another change that we made, and that is adding a 0.45 acre feet of water that a homeowner would need to provide to the city to accommodate extra water that would be used with a renter. We're requiring only half, in that there would be no extra outside watering, just inside watering. So those were kind of the major changes that we made to the Salem ordinance. They have an application package also that we've incorporated. If an homeowner wants to establish an ADU, it would require some modifications to their home to accommodate that, plus a small city inspection to confirm that it meets the requirements to have a renter in the home. So those are some things that we've added and changed to the proposed ADU ordinance for the city.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne.
I have a question with that for Wayne. So is it up to this, it's in now compliance with the state code?
It would be, yes.
Did they build theirs after the state or before?
They had theirs after the state.
Okay.
Does Salem require the share of water also?
No, they do not.
Okay. Can we keep asking, or maybe this is for a later time, but does Salem have any septic tanks?
That wasn't addressed one way or the other in their ordinance.
Okay.
So, and we haven't either addressed it one way or
Okay.
the other.
And septic tanks are based on the number of bedrooms you
Bedrooms.
have in a home. So that would have been predetermined when you first built the home, right? That your septic tank would be based on the number of.
Our homes are different up here in this clay. I mean, I'm telling you honestly, they will fail eventually.
I thought that we heard that.
But it's knowing when they fail and dealing with renters is a whole different ballgame. So I don't want to get into that yet, but
I thought part of the inspection process that the state is requiring us to do included septic.
it's in
septic
there.
tank.
It's in there, but it doesn't say how often you need to go check this tank. I mean, it's crazy.
Okay, all right. No other online comments, Jody? I don't think so. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, the proposal to amend the city fencing ordinance for the R119 zone.
We had a request from Robert Nelson, who's building the lower part, north end of the city, to give some consideration to modifying our fencing ordinance to better accommodate the homes down there in that R119 zone. And as the Planning Commission looked at it, there's obviously much more opportunity for development down there in R119. And so the recommendation we're making is a rather simplified fence ordinance that allows some privacy. And this only pertains to a perimeter fence around the outside of the lot. It's pretty liberal, but the exclusions are no barbed wire, no strand wire can be used.
Chain link.
Or chain link.
And is this for the entire property? I mean, they could pick a big brick wall around the whole outside perimeter?
They could. But the limit will be 6 foot, as is our current fencing limit, but it can be all enclosed. Yes. Yes, it cannot interfere with the safety feature with oncoming traffic. It would have to accommodate that as a see-through, or possibly not put one up on a street side of the corner lot. But that's addressed in the proposed ordinance.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this fencing ordinance? Yes. Would you stand and use or you don't have to stand, but state your name for the minutes.
Chad Lyman.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have I want to have an understanding as to what and how this was researched, and if we've ever sampled some of our other communities that are in an environment like ours. And I'm also wondering if there's been any consideration given to, wildlife corridors, since we live in a community that is of that nature. And then also, just wondering if there should maybe be some restrictions on like vinyl fencing as well. And just, I worry that maybe some of the fencing that's out there and the way that it's implemented won't necessarily reflect the character of the city. So those are just some comments and some questions, I guess. If you can.
Thank you. Look, I have a wildlife corridor written on my minutes or on my agenda to ask about in our work session. So, all right. Any other comments? Jody? Okay. Hearing no comments, I will close our public hearing and we will move on to our work session. And the first item on our work session agenda is the request for a memorial bench to be installed at the city park by the Dave and Linda Waters family.
Now,
And,
I've invited Andrea.
I was going to say, I believe Andrea's here.
On the call tonight. She previously had sent the renderings and I forwarded them to all of you with the costs, well, at least with the design and what they're proposing. So do we want to let Andrea address this?
Yeah. Yes, please, Andrea.
Oh, I just.
Hey, we can't hear you yet. See if you
Oh, can you not hear me? I unmuted
Like a-
myself. I'm not very good at this. Can you?
Well, I can hear you. Maybe they don't have their sound up.
Oh,
Oh, sure.
can
I think
anyone
it
hear me?
Might be the mic on your computer.
Maybe call
It's
us.
not working.
Call us on another phone.
No, don't do, Andrew, don't.
That's-
Hold on a second.
I'm trying to get some help here.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Andrea.
I'm sorry.
My computer.
I know.
like,
1 second.
Do you just want to call
I can hear you
my
just.
cell phone? We can do it. Oh,
Woodland Hills.
Chris,
oh,
Chris can't.
Chris
talk
is
to you,
telling
but-
us what to do, but we can't hear him either.
He's quiet too.
Jody?
We can hear her.
someone can hear me?
Yes.
I can hear her too. This is Janice Otley. I can hear her.
Yeah.
And it's-
There
it
we
must
go.
have come to-
There
Everybody
we
that's
go.
here did can
Okay.
hear.
I think it was our problem.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
I probably don't need to say anything, just if there's any issues, can people hear me
We
at
just-
this point?
Yeah, maybe just tell us a little of why you would like to do this and.
Okay. I would like to do this because both of my parents were cremated and we don't have a gravestone at a cemetery. And they lived in Woodland Hills for 40 years. And I thought that doing a memorial bench up at the park would be something that would be appropriate. And I would cover all of the costs for that. And you guys could help pick the location. And if there's a spot up there that you would be okay with, and you've seen the images of it, it's kind of, designed to last for a very long time. And I'm not extremely familiar with the park or its layout or anything, but I thought that if you guys knew of a spot that could use a bench, that maybe we could do that.
I think it's an excellent idea. And for those of you who didn't know Dave and Linda, they were my neighbors and I have known them for over 30 years. And they were just really great, wonderful people who lived in Woodland Hills and who were a great asset to our community and helped in a lot of different ways prior to their illnesses and death. I think it's a great legacy to maybe start at the park and to be able to have that opportunity for your family to have a place to visit on our beautiful mountain in the city that they love.
As far as the location, I would recommend something along the backside, along the trail, to where somebody could sit there and watch the sunset or something like that, and look out over the whole valley. I think that would be in my opinion, that would be a good location.
Yeah, I would leave it up to you guys to help choose a location. But yeah, along a trail or something like that is, I think, a good choice. They would like that.
I think it's a lovely idea.
Yeah, I like the idea and I agree with Bob. I think
I like it.
that's a great location along the trail so that, anyway, maybe, we've already got the Lambert bench
Mhm.
kind of over on that backside. And so another place where people can sit and watch the sunset.
Could we have them suggest a place or two rather than us?
Well,
pick?
she said they're not real familiar with the
I'm
park.
just not that familiar. It was,
They all
the
grew up here, but the park is newer
park
than
wasn't
them.
there yet. Yep.
Okay.
So
Just trying to give you all the.
They moved here, the Waters moved here in 1981. And so they were longtime residents and so Andrea grew up here as a young woman and graduated high school and went off and had her own life and own family. And so, lots have changed since that time, but I think we can find a place. And I agree with Bob and David that would be a good location looking out over the valley. I think they would really like that.
So maybe what we could do as far as offering an opportunity for you to be involved in the location is that we could schedule a time when we would walk it, and I guess that would kind of come from Chief Northrup, where we would walk along the trail, pick a location, and if you wanted to be with us when we did that, I think that we could send you an email and an invitation, and if you were available, we would certainly welcome you to participate.
And if not,
Okay.
we can video you in because
yes,
we
Okay.
can always do that
Yes.
because Andrea does live a few hours away from Woodland Hills now. And
Yep.
but I think it's a great opportunity. Andrea, my question to you is, I know that you've talked with the person who will be making this bench. When is the timeline for it to be finished? Do you know?
I am not sure. I had kind of had in my mind that it was probably not going to be until spring that we'd be able to put it anywhere up there. Just historically, there's usually snow on the ground by now. But if there's not yet, I don't know the exact timeline. I know he's just waiting on me to say yes, it's a go. And so I don't think that it will be very much longer. So maybe it's kind of like weather permitting. You know, we could look and find a location and then, you know, wait to put it in the spring if that's the case or something like that.
Does your company that you're getting the bench with install it, or would our Public Works committee, would we like them to be involved in installing it?
Whatever works best. I had told the company that's making it that we'll just pick it up from them and, you know, arrange the installation separately, but I can have someone, I don't know what connections you have or what you've got, but I don't think the company that's making it will be the one installing it.
Okay, we can figure
We-
that one.
We'll have Chief Northup get in touch with you and have you guys work that out.
Yeah, I think it would be a good service project for some
Yes.
young people.
I just think you should all know that that Dave Waters worked at Mountain View Hospital and tried once to sled to work. It didn't work.
And he rescued me from snow because we were one of the first houses on Sky Lake and they would forget to plow. And so sometimes I'd be snowed in and he'd come and rescue me and say, okay, here we are, Carrie.
So, all right. Thank you, Andrea. We'll
Thank
get
you.
that.
Thank you, Andrea.
That's a lovely, this will be
Thank
wonderful.
you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the proposal to, Craig, we will get info to you to get in touch with her and work out the locations and the planning and the schedule and all that and stay and work with me and we'll
work with
get that done.
The Trails Committee.
Yeah.
Park.
All right. Number 6 is the proposal to amend City Code Title 10-6A-1, allowing the Planning Commissioner alternate to vote. You guys have any questions or concerns about this?
It just seems interesting to me that it's not already
Done.
possible. So I'm surprised that it's not. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that when I was the Planning Commissioner alternate, I voted if all the commissioners weren't there.
Well, that's what I was thinking. It seems like it was a normal thing.
Yeah,
that you
I know
were-
that on the boards that I sit on, that alternates always vote if they're acting in place of
right.
Someone.
But suppose they're there and so's the other group. They're
If
all-
everybody's there, then they don't vote. Right.
And that would be obvious.
Mhm.
If one person is missing, they can vote now instead of just three.
If they're the alternate representing that person.
So
Yeah, it would be-
it'll let them vote more often, which I think is good, but.
It'd be just when there's not a quorum?
No, because that's what it says now.
Okay.
They only fill in if there's not a quorum.
Right.
Okay.
So now it'll let them vote every time there's somebody not there. So if they
One of
ditch
the
Wayne and hold a meeting, they can do stuff.
For your information, they can participate in the discussion, but they just can't vote unless they're one of the 5 commissioners or filling in for somebody that night.
The magic number is 5.
So
But
you
they
guys
won't
need,
score, they won't break a tie. Does Wayne vote?
yeah, they're 5.
With Wayne.
Yes.
Sounds like a good idea.
So if there's 4, there would alternate would vote.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or concerns on that before we move on? Okay. Number 7 is the proposal to repeal City Code 10-1-4B and 10-11-2CG regarding the CCNRs. I would encourage you, if you haven't, read the statement that came from Megan today that Jody forwarded to us this afternoon.
Well, her comments were to not change it at all, if I understand it correctly.
Well,
Well,
can
there was
I-
an error.
Can I,
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to read it. I read it earlier and it led to a couple of questions. So it basically says, Dear City Recorder, please have this statement read as part of the public hearing regarding the proposed repeal of portions of the city code 10-1-4B. I do not agree with changing this ordinance without putting into place mechanisms for enforcement of the WUPA CCNRs, which are to be enforced by individual property owners. It is important that the city take care to enact procedures whereby the city will respond to the concerns of individual property owners concerning the WUPA CCNRs, in the same manner that they will respond to the concerns of a review board for Summit Creek or any other HOA with an active review board. Without this same level of respect for the enforcing authority under each CCNR, the city's actions could potentially dilute the enforceability of the WUPA restrictions. Additionally, the change proposed for City Code 10-1-4B contains errors and is a fragment sentence. The proposed change currently reads, whenever the regulations of this zoning title impose higher standards than are required in any other ordinance or regulation. This is not a complete thought. If the city council desires to take out references to private restrictions, it should not remove any other portions of the code. Therefore, if the city council insists upon removing these references, which action I do not support, it should be at the very least keep all other portions of the current code intact. This would make the amended code read, whenever the regulations of this zoning title impose higher standards and are required in any other ordinance or regulation, these regulations shall govern. But if the requirements of the other ordinance or regulation are the more restrictive, then those requirements shall govern. Respectfully, Megan Fusion, President. The questions that this led to really surrounds the idea, which I think is super important, of an active board. And that is really kind of at the crux of a lot of the issue here, is the fact that I don't know how many years ago, but it was probably 7 or 8 years ago when the WUPA board was disbanded.
The whole WUPA HOA was disbanded.
2014.
Actually, it was not the whole WUPA HOA, to be clear. It was, I mean, they kind of disbanded that, but they left all the CCRs intact, but it left it without any enforcing authority. So there was no group to actually do enforcement on it. So it's like, so what Megan's saying, I hear what she's saying. She's saying she wants an individual property owner to be able to come to the city, but that's not the way HOAs work. And so but I think she's hit upon kind of that's the rub right there. And so I think, what I would recommend, and I don't even know if this is possible, but I think that the only real course of action is to try and reinstate some property owners association with a board, and then the city absolutely will, and that was a question for Corbett, and I apologize for making your memory go back this far, but where did a property owners association come in the permit approval process previously? So if we had WUPA in place, at what point would they be allowed to inject themselves into the process before a permit was issued?
Well, it was always my understanding that the architectural committee was that enforcement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Dr. Gibb, Barbara Horks.
Mike Raymond.
So what would happen is people would submit their plans to the city. At the same time, they would submit their plans to the architectural board, correct?
No. Everybody wanted to sign the site. So we had to get the site plan correct first. And so I went through it with them, correct. And then once the site plan was 100%, then I would drop them off at Dr. Gibbs' house. And then they would take it through and bring them back when they got done, when all three of them had reviewed it and signed it.
Okay, so with Summit Creek, how does it work?
They review it before it ever comes here.
Because their HOA requires the plans to actually be done by their own designers or whomever they've contracted with.
Well, and they don't care about the site plan. I mean, again, the architectural committee, everybody wanted to sign the site plan. So that was one final document that everybody agreed to. So the planning commission, at the time, the planning commission and the architectural committee all wanted to sign the site plan. So
That's super helpful. Again, it's, who do we drop the plans off to? That's the biggest problem that we've got now, is we don't have any enforcement authority.
So as I understand, and I could be wrong, so correct me, it would be inappropriate for the city to go out and try to get the HOA reconstituted.
Yes.
That
That's
needs
not
to
the
be.
city, that's the homeowner.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what
Right.
I'm saying. And so that's a group of citizens to go off and do that. I think that your comment that it would be nice if they were reconstituted, because then the CCNRs could be enforced. But as it stands now, they are unenforceable.
But we also need to remember that the city has no jurisdiction over HOAs or CCNRs. And so that's what we're doing here, is cleaning that up to make those HOAs, if they choose to be organized, then they are the ones that would enforce their CCNRs, and we would be left out of that process. I've contacted several other cities. They absolutely do not have anything to do with their HOAs. Because I mean, they have lots of them all over the place, and so they said we don't keep track of them. We don't do anything with them. It's just as they are submitted. You know, their HOAs, a lot of them, I think, have the process like Summit Creek does, where it has to go through the HOA before they even come to the city for approval.
I think that's a good process. I also think I remember that when David Church was around and he was here talking to us, that he basically said that it was illegal for the city to be involved in enforcement of CCNRs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think a correction is probably in order. The HOAs are enforceable as is. But
Who
it's
enforces them?
property owner to property owner.
The CCNRs, not the HOAs. The CCNRs are enforceable.
Yeah, the CCNRs are enforceable like
So
it
you're
is
saying
right
that
now,
an individual without a board can enforce.
according to the CCNRs. I mean, we've read them, not that we enforce them because we don't, right? But the CCNRs are enforceable between property owners. So
But
if I don't like you and the way you're doing it, and it's against the CCNRs, it's up to me to enforce the CCNRs on you.
And
that entails going to court.
okay,
And
that was my next question. So really the enforcement comes from
HOA.
from the
Citizens.
courts.
Mhm.
The individual brings awareness to it, and if the person doesn't want to voluntarily do it, then the enforcement comes through the courts.
I think going back to Megan's point, it's what I hear Megan asking, and she's welcome to correct me if I'm wrong, is she wants the city to act as the enforcement arm when she notifies the city, or another homeowner notifies the city that there is a CCNR issue.
Not going to happen.
But again, that's kind of not the way it works. The city, it would be, this is the example I gave, or that I thought of as I was reading this, is it would be roughly equivalent to the city being asked to enforce Salem laws within Woodland Hills. They're a separate organization, they're a separate group. I realize that's not a perfect example because there are geographical boundaries, but another example I thought of is, having the city be responsible for enforcing, church laws, because they're another organization that's within the city boundaries, but they're a separate organization, so we can't enforce that.
Or give another example, I think that would be a little closer would be, you have some kind of a contract between landowners, let's say for use of a well, private contract. It'd be asking the city to come in and enforce a private contract.
And
Okay, good.
And I think that actually I think what she's more asking is not for us to enforce, but for us to say construction can't continue until this is worked out.
That's enforcement.
Right. But I mean,
we can't do that
right.
either.
No, I agree. But I don't think that they're asking us to go in and do other things. They're just saying they want the city to stop construction until the problem's worked out. But we don't really have that
authority.
Yeah,
Well, and we don't have the authority because they're not our rules.
right,
Right.
right.
Which again, there's a little bit of messiness.
It
because
is.
WUPA started as essentially the city. That's what the city government was.
They were in tandem.
But
Well, it was separate from the city government, but it ended up becoming parallel and some boundaries were crossed with WUPA that made people think it was city government. But it was definitely a separate organization.
But they
Some
did,
of
but they
those-
did work in tandem.
They did.
They did.
well, and I will say that at first they were the same. Before there was even a town, there was WUPA. And
So-
WUPA handled the plowing, handled the building of the roads and all that. But then you're right, Gary, it then switched so that they were kind of side by side for a long, long time, and it incorporated the entire city.
So I think these are good questions. I think that Megan's letter is good in that it helps us educate each other on what it is that we as a city can and cannot do. And there's a lot with CCNRs, if not everything, almost everything we can't touch. And that becomes, again, between the two citizens. And if there's not voluntary compliance, then the courts.
But down the road, there must be value in those old CCNRs, and maybe we should talk about bringing them into our ordinances. I mean, I may be speaking out of turn here,
We did that.
No,
but if
we-
there's good
The
things,
planning commission has been doing that.
Okay.
But again, one of the things you have to keep in mind, again, and I go back to my Orem example. You had to have a covered garage. Somebody built an uncovered garage. Well, city ordinance cannot dictate that. City ordinance can't say you have to build a covered garage. CCNRs can, but city ordinances can't.
well, I think setbacks could be is a
CCNRs,
different example.
it
Setbacks ought to
is.
be adopted if they're better, or if we like it better.
well, setbacks are different, but like color of the house
Mm-hmm.
can't be covered by a city ordinance, can be by CCNRs.
Yeah.
Texture of the outer material can be covered by CCNR, cannot by ordinance. So it's not as easy as you might think to just say, oh,
Yeah.
let's just adopt all the CCNRs.
Yeah, because
You can't do that.
there are certain
Okay.
things that we can't do as a
That's
city.
true.
But yeah, and the real concern, if there is real concern, the solution is to reconstitute the board of WUPA or any other neighborhood that has CCNRs.
mean,
Would have
well,
to have a
there's-
board constituted, and that's how the enforcement would happen.
There's
And
there's five right now that are not functioning, and the sixth one is Summit Creek that is functioning.
So just to
Of
clarify,
HOAs in the city.
not to sound like a broken record, but I am, that's a citizen responsibility.
Yep.
City can neither encourage it or discourage it.
yes,
As I'm reading this code, the change, it is, as it's presented to us right now in the packet, it's not a complete sentence. The other thing that I want to make sure of is I don't want the city to be against HOAs or CCNRs. I want us to support them, but just recognize that we can't enforce their rules. And there's a subtle difference, I get that. But I want to make sure that whatever wording we have, I do believe we need to say, something to the effect of, if the property is in an HOA, it is up to the homeowner to understand their CCNRs and to abide by them. Some text like that, I think, would be at least somewhat supportive of the CCNRs without us being the enforcement arm.
Well, and I think that we can go as far as saying that we would like something in there that says that we welcome input from HOAs and the things that they add to the quality of a neighborhood. And so we're there, we're very clearly saying that we would welcome their input.
Or their participation.
But at the same time, we're talking about an ordinance, so I think we need to keep
Right.
it simple and clean. That says that, we do need to change the sentence structure, but I like the idea that, the regulations and zoning, because it's only if it's on your plat. There are homes that are surrounded by HOAs that are not in it, so your neighbor may have higher restrictions than you do, but they're in the HOA, you're not. So I think it's important for us to say something to the fact that, the city zoning, unless there are higher restrictions on your plat. And then makes everyone responsible for finding out what their own restrictions are and which HOA they might belong to. That will be all recorded. So I don't think we need to go any deeper than we have to in our explanation.
Corbett?
Again, not that you want to get into the mud with it, but aren't we in the best position to help facilitate this? I mean, if we do nothing and we leave it between property owners, you're going to have neighbors suing neighbors, you're going to have neighbors taking neighbors to court, and all we have to do is put a form in the building permit checklist that says, have you complied with your CCNRs?
Right.
Not that we're enforcing it, but
I think that's a great idea.
Be
but
one of the
it would just
checklists.
help avoid so much of the trouble that comes when ignorance takes over and I didn't know, and now my neighbor's taking me to court because I didn't comply with the CCNRs. I get it. You can go to the county website, you can pull up the land records information, you can pull up all the CCNRs that are recorded against the property, but who does?
Right.
Unless it's brought to the forefront.
You do.
I like that idea of including that as one of the checkoffs in your packet.
And what if they say no? Then what does the city do? Nothing.
Yeah.
So what's the point of doing it? It just raises the expectation that the city's going to do something about it, but we're not. And if we start questioning them about it, then we start on that downhill slope of
less harmless, even though we're trying to help.
I don't know, that may be something to look into.
If they check the box that says, I know.
On the permittee.
I think it's a question we need to ask our attorney. Because is there a difference between how an NGO, like the church, or a city responds to that? Is that?
Who would give the hold harmless would be my other question, because usually it'd be the other citizens, not the permit applicant, because they're the ones that potentially, I mean, it could be the permit applicant that sues, but it could be very likely it's somebody else. And
It's the
we wouldn't
HOA
have
in
hold
general,
harmless with them.
because it would be
You don't
probably,
have to get everybody to sign one.
would be the HOA as a whole, if it's reconstituted, that would sue the one individual within that HOA for a violation.
That's correct.
That's it.
Even if you didn't make them answer a question, but just put a statement in there, please be aware that the city does not enforce CCNRs. It's property owner to property owner. If your neighbor doesn't like you,
No.
this
Put that in
this
there.
could become an issue.
Sign here.
We're just saying.
Well,
You
you
know.
could put something on there, check to see if your property is in an HOA. And city is not responsible for enforcement of your CCNRs.
I think there's a way to write that
Right.
in a very positive way that talks about being a good neighbor and a good citizen.
In the application, not in the ordinance.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So I think we could still go forward in doing this tonight with that last part, those requirements shall govern tonight, because we want to clarify that and then get the wording that we would put in the packet.
That's right.
Because I think that was precisely the problem that happened up here that caused a lot of this, is that when it got to court, the court basically ruled that the people building the house didn't have due cause to know what they were supposed to comply with. And so at least if there's somewhere the city waves a little flag and says, you need to check this thing, then at least it puts the responsibility back in their lap.
If I might add a comment, in our overlay zone ordinance, it says this: the city will not enforce any codes, covenants, or restrictions, CCNRs, of an HOA. Such enforcement will be up to the HOA. If the HOA is without officers, it shall be up to the HOA members to enforce their own CCNRs if they choose to do so.
That's in the overlay one.
It's in the overlay ordinance.
That's okay with you? And that might be something
That sounds
put in
good.
there, put in the package.
That's all we need.
Because we,
Yeah.
a lot of the contractors and citizens don't know these things. And so if there's some way that we can
That only
put it
applies
in a
to overlay
positive.
though, right?
Well, we could put it in as part
That's what I think.
of the
Every-
packet
of
that we're
everything.
talking about. This
Just
change
put
that
it.
we're talking about tonight can go forward as an ordinance change, adding that statement then to the packet of, you've checked it, that you may be in an HOA, and then add that statement in there that the city doesn't enforce them.
That would be good, right?
I think that,
Okay.
What do you think, Dave?
Good.
Does that go,
Good.
I mean, does that, it raises the issue? Obviously, it doesn't go super far, but.
Well, and that's what I'm looking for, is, again, I want to make sure that any wording we have is neutral to positive towards homeowners association. And then that we have somewhere where we can say in the building permitting process, here's one more checkbox you've got to check.
Yeah, be aware of.
And, and again, I think that's as far as we can go as a city.
Right.
I don't think we should go any further. It
Yep.
would have saved us an awful lot of heartache.
Not just us. Yep.
We do this now with developers. So offsite reimbursement agreements are developer to developer. The city doesn't have anything to do with it. And in our form, maybe we need to research this, and if we're out of line by doing it, then we quit doing it. But in the form, we ask, are off-site reimbursements required? So if you're coming into a development or you're coming into an area that's already got improvements, you're responsible. I think our code is within 30 years of the installation of the improvement. You're responsible to reimburse the installer the value of those improvements when they were installed.
Okay. You guys need to work out anything else before we move on? Okay, the next item is the proposal to amend the city ADU accessory dwelling unit ordinance.
The draft that was sent out has one typo in it, so it says the owned of the property instead of the owner of the property must reside.
Mhm.
When did we get that? Where is that?
It's in the
That was
packet.
packet.
That's from a Jody email.
No, it's on the website.
Oh, I get you. Okay.
Town.
Hmm?
The town.
Right, town cloud.
Do we have that?
You know what? I don't have this ordinance in my stack, Jody. Okay.
Okay.
So we will not sign it tonight, is what you're saying?
Okay.
So we'll take action on it next week, next time. I would like to
Next
get
meeting.
it taken care of by our next meeting, if possible, just because we don't want to be caught up in any fines
Right.
and or things that are coming down the pipeline.
Any other, so anything else that you guys want to wrestle through tonight in this work session? Okay.
I think it was great that we could model it after one that had already kind of gone through some of the process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 9.
Sorry, can I
Oh,
just ask
sorry.
you-
Yes.
So Wayne,
please.
on this, could you give me maybe a little more history of this? So, I mean, the planning commission had it. Planning commission decided to go and look at Salem's.
Yes.
And that as a starting point, and then took it from there and said, no, how does it, interrelate with our city, made changes, that kind of the process it went through. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
For your information, I don't know if they'll change it or not, but Summer Creek does not allow ADUs. So that's up to them, but that's in their CCNR.
And what will happen with what the state is doing is that they're going to be requiring a certain percentage of your city boundaries will have to have an ADUs. They haven't determined what that is yet, depending on the kind of city you're in. And so it's never going to be 100%.
But it's a certain percent of your city they'll have to be allowed.
That will
it.
have to be allowed.
Okay.
It still
So-
seems strange to me, though, that the CCNRs for a development would trump city ordinance. I mean, if city ordinance says you can't
It-
have ADUs,
It would,
how does?
yeah,
so
they
it's a-
wouldn't be able to
it's
because
more
they,
I read
restrictive.
this really close today, and HB 82 has rules against associations as
Mhm.
well. So
Yep.
Summit Creek are going to have ADUs. It trumps the HOA. even.
yeah, state law trumps city law, which trumps HOA
So-
laws. But again, right now for our city, some of the larger cities are being of a certain population size have stricter regulations than smaller cities.
Well,
So
and,
it's
and
not-
university towns too.
And
but-
university towns have a different thing. And so right now they changed some things that'll probably change again in the session. So as long as we have something that complies with what's happening now, then if they change it again, we don't have a lot of changes to make, maybe just one or two to keep up with what they're doing.
I don't know what good it's going to do the state because the rentals in our city and Summit Creek are going to be not affordable. They're not affordable housing.
Well,
They're going to
they
be
don't care
higher
if it's
than,
affordable.
Well, they
just saying-
do. That's
they're
their
just-
whole goal in
well,
this.
they're
If you
saying
read the
just
ordinance, that's their
more-
main purpose.
more rentals available, because there are people who rent
You
that are
gotta be
higher
80% of
renters.
the AMI or whatever it's called. But you can only charge rent 80% of what the median income is in the area. And those are out of line. I mean, they're not gonna work here.
Utah County, I think for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom is now like $1,200-$1,300. It's pretty high. So, and most of our people would probably be renting a room. You know, this isn't going for whole homes.
Well, it's kitchen.
This will be,
Kitchen and
this will
stuff.
be just a
It's just
room,
throwing it.
or,
Throwing stuff.
you know,
Thank you, Paul.
depending on how it's defined, you know. Is it just the basement?
Quite a few.
There's quite a few mother-in-law type
Apartments, yeah.
apartments, yeah, that would probably rent for 1,500, and that would be pretty standard.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other things that you want to wrestle through tonight before we close this issue? Okay. Number 9, the proposal to amend the city fencing ordinance for the R119 zone. And that was one of my first concerns. If everybody can fence 100% of their property, that causes a problem for wildlife corridors, which is a big concern up here because
It's a big concern for me,
And so-
not just wildlife.
was there a discussion about that, Wayne? And can you enlighten us? Because I'm sure that you thought of that.
It was touched on, but not in depth a lot. That's why we removed the overlay zone from it. So Summit Creek is not covered. In Summit Creek, you can't build that kind of fence because it has an overlay zone to it. We felt with all that bottom land, that those are going to be less impacted by having wildlife corridors versus up.
That's where all the
But that's where the,
You see, that's where the
Yeah,
hell comes through.
that-
That's where you see
that's where they, yeah.
I would
50
think-
deer every night.
I would think that fencing is not the way to manage the wildlife corridors. I think that the wildlife corridors should be managed through open spaces.
Well,
And
that's
so,
kind of the point.
Well, that's the point.
well, that's right.
That's what
Yeah.
I was saying.
I don't think we can, that we need to tie up the fencing ordinance with wildlife corridors. We add the requirement to have open spaces to deal with that.
Well,
Next-
except if you're taking an entire subdivision and you're building fences, you're effectively creating a wall.
No, what you're doing is you're going to force the developer to have open spaces to
Right,
allow
but-
for the wildlife corridor.
But it's too late.
It's too late for that,
But
yeah.
The subdivision's been made.
The development that we have isn't that big. What we
It's a
need to be
whole-
doing is looking forward to
I
what
know.
we're going to do in the future.
Right, but right now we're dealing with what's there, because this is
Yeah.
being asked for what's there, which is quite a significant amount of homes that would, at the acreage that is there, having an entire fence could be a cement wall around a whole fortress, right? I don't think that leads to the kind of atmosphere we want in Woodland Hills.
Well-
I mean, it's not just the wildlife corridor, it's also aesthetics of our city. And if you have every single person building these fences completely around their homes, when we don't allow that anywhere else, I don't think it lends itself for a privacy issue at all. It just doesn't seem right to me.
But I think as far as the wildlife goes, it's like the water runoff. You fence your property and your neighbor fences their property and you're pushing wildlife into somebody else's land where they weren't before, and, that's problematic.
That's what happened over in Elk Ridge, right? In the canyon after the fires, and the one neighbor built that huge big fortress of a wall that then water went down to the next neighbor. But you drive up there and you're thinking, that doesn't look like it belongs here. Well, I don't want that in Woodland Hills.
Right.
What was his basis for the request?
He was looking at some of the homes built in Salem and the areas surrounding them, and these kinds of fences are allowed there. The homes are closer there than they are in other places. They don't have trees, they don't have
Right.
other natural
Barriers.
Plant some trees.
There's no privacy.
The idea, one of the primary things was privacy.
Well, I mean, I can certainly see the need for some different considerations, but I do think there are a few big things that we have to keep in mind. And that is a wildlife corridor down there.
And what, right now, our fencing ordinance, I mean, you could fence your backyard. We could allow them to fence their backyard, but maybe not the front yard. That would leave it open for the wildlife to walk through and also for aesthetics and other things, but.
Corbett?
Your ordinance requires a fence to be 5 feet off the property line
This one says you can be right on the property line.
in that zone.
Yeah, I don't know.
We have to figure out some way to allow those people to have privacy in their backyards.
Right.
Without giving up.
What?
Yeah, we could,
Like on a long stretch, can there be like a break, like an alley or like, wildlife to go through, like, can that be a requirement?
well, that's the 5 feet off
Yeah.
the property line
Yeah.
is essentially what that
But those not-
accomplishes.
But if you install a fence first, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna install a fence, you've already got one, and it's 5 feet long. See my-
Right.
You just gained 5
Right.
feet.
So we have some other property and that's what happened is that the neighbor put up a fence, right? 6 feet and it's on the property line. And they called us and said, would you pay half to redo our fence? And we said, no, because it's not our fence, but it's on our property line. We benefit from it, but yeah, the neighbor built it. If they want it repaired, they can repair it.
Make sure you mow
But-
that 5 feet too.
Yeah, exactly. So, this being on the property line, being able to be 100%, those are two things that I think are red flags for me.
One other issue, in Utah, fence becomes property line after 20 years. There might be some issues with that, with PUD and something else, but if you put up a fence and it's on your neighbor's property and it's not changed for 20 years, that becomes quasi property line.
There's ever, not that we've ever had any property line disputes in plats A and B. Those of you who don't live in A and B might not know that the property line sometimes goes through the middle of someone else's house.
Yeah, because I think, again, I'm not a specialist in this area, but I thought it was that there was some kind of presumption that was, both parties understood that was the line. So if you could show that, no, I never gave acquiescence to that, then there wouldn't be a shift in the line. That's what BYU, that's why they shut down their roads every year for a day, so that they say no acquiescence on this.
Right.
To not lose
Right.
the public. I don't think it's not in place anymore.
There's a lot of other things. You have to prove that you pay taxes on
Yeah.
of the property to claim ownership. There's some other things.
Yeah.
And if we put that, like what Corbett was saying, if we put that fence boundary back the 5 feet, and so that would be 10 feet between two property owners, that would give a wildlife corridor automatically.
Or
If
you,
everyone
or
put a
you
fence
limit the percent of the property
I think
that can be
both.
fenced.
I think you do both.
But again, I don't have to install a fence.
Right.
And if you want to install a fence and give me 5 feet of your yard, I'm sure not going to install a fence then. I mean, why would I?
However, if you have a little row of 6 houses and 5 of them install fences, then you have one neighbor that becomes the wildlife corridor.
That's true.
And yeah, but maybe you don't want all the deer coming through your property because all your neighbors fence theirs.
If my fence is 5 feet further onto my property, that's where the deer are going to go, right?
No, like if you've got 6 houses and 5 of them are all fenced, the deer are going to go through the yard of the house that's not fenced. And yeah, they get 5 extra feet if you're doing that on each side, but they're still getting all those deer coming through their yard and not that. So, yeah.
I think this is an item that we need to turn back over to the planning commission because there's lots of nuances that need to be discussed.
Well,
And I'm not sure that we can solve these problems.
I very much agree with you, Bob. And honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm kind of agreeing with Carrie's point that we don't have fences in Woodland Hills for this very reason, because all of Woodland Hills is a wildlife corridor. And do we really want? Anyway.
Because we have more development down in that bottom portion,
I
and we
would
don't
sure
want to
like
just
to
come
hear
into a.
a really good argument for a fence, and I haven't heard one.
I could conceive of a good argument of that. I can't go into my backyard without all of my neighbors involved in whatever it is that I'm doing in my backyard. I
What
think
are you doing in your
Hearing
backyard?
Now I want to move. with
I
you,
left
Bob.
it to your imagination, Dave.
He's got this hot tub.
So we can see where your mind's going.
Well, I think that's why, Bob,
I'm
I think
sorry.
in allowing the privacy aspect and still looking at what else, other things we do, is that it's a percentage of your property that can be fenced, as well as then limiting it to how close to the property line it could be. You still have privacy where you want it. You have an open corridor for the wildlife, and you can maintain what we consider our quality of life for Woodland Hills by not having fortresses built.
I think that our number one problem is that we are thinking about fences as an afterthought instead of at the beginning. And what we really need to be looking at is the future development and how we can make it blend in there in a natural way. And we may have some problems with the existing development, but we have to consider the rights of the homeowner to have a little bit of privacy in their backyard.
Well, whatever we propose for tonight and in this ordinance would go forward with any of the developments that are continuing.
Don't we already have ordinances that allow for backyard fences though, for the privacy like that? Or
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, you can
We
have a
have-
fence.
Yeah, we have which is based on percentage of your property.
And
Yeah,
Well, 60%, that's a good number because, if you don't fence the front yard, you basically have the whole thing in the backyard. And does that going to allow for a wildlife corridor?
well,
Maybe, maybe not.
if you put it off the property line and you leave the front open, there's two sides.
yeah.
So
Corbett?
then you're
Wait.
gonna require that those citizens give up 5 feet of their backyard
basically
that they
10.
can't
It's
use.
5 on either side.
5 on each side that they can't use, that they don't have access because they want a fence.
Right.
I think we have to find a better answer.
Corbett, did you?
As you do this, please consider enforceability. I would dare say that there's not one fence in town that's 5 feet off the property line. And so just consider that. I mean, you set speed limits by the 80th percentile, right? You set speed limits based on how fast people drive that road.
That's for Woodland Hills Drive.
Just make it enforceable. Otherwise, they're just not going to do it. They're just going to put up a fence that they're not going to care, and they're going to say, make me move it.
And what's the basis for the 5 foot?
We've done that.
No, we've made people move
Usually
their
it's
fences.
BUE, only 5 foot. So that fence is to allow that easement on property line.
But
Not just the fence.
PUE is both sides of the property. You'll never get anything.
It is.
You'll never get it in 5 feet. It takes all 10.
Right.
In actuality, on the slope. No, but that's.
I've been in quite a few subdivisions that do have a pathway between, I don't know how frequent it is, but they do have a pathway. It's about 10 or maybe a little bit more feet wide. It is not landscaped in any way. and it's just a pathway to get from the front through to maybe to a larger open space area. And I think that's a good solution going forward. I'm just not sure that it's a good solution for people that have bought and built with certain expectations.
I wouldn't think that it would become, we're not saying that that becomes a pedestrian walkway or trail system. It's just a wildlife corridor because they'll go wherever is an open space. Because that property is still theirs. We don't have a trail easement there. We have easements for utilities, but that's all on the property line as far as I know of this particular development. I'm just thinking that.
Can Craig?
Well, keep in mind too, you go to Elk Ridge, all the lower homes down there, they have fences to the property line.
That's right.
I mean, that was a wildlife corridor. The deer will figure it out. And if it's just that lower section of town, it might be a viable option for down there, as long as it doesn't creep up into the city, if that's not what you guys are looking for.
And how many lots do we have down there, though? I mean, we have hundreds of lots still buildable down there, and I guess I don't want that whole entire section to look like Elk Ridge.
But we don't have hundreds of homes
We
that
don't have a lot of choice.
That are in a approved. My mind went blank.
Well,
on
if
what
you,
they're
yeah, and
called.
if you don't want to do the
An
fences for the
approved,
look, that's one thing.
Subdivision, development or something, whatever.
Well, what if, I mean, I don't know, what if, in the ordinance or somewhere, it said something to the effect of, if, when the subdivision is developed, if corridors are left, then fencing ordinance, this will rule. If there are not corridors set aside, then you have to comply with this other. Does that make sense?
People don't like deer in their backyard.
Right, I know, but.
So, I mean,
But you can't just build a fence to push them into your neighbor's yard. That's the problem.
every neighbor's got its same fence.
Yeah.
It keeps them in the around the city, not so much in your
Although
backyard.
we all know they're going over that fence.
Yeah.
The deer are.
I see the video of me Pearson today.
Yeah, or get caught in it.
Get caught in.
Yeah.
Before this last area was approved, there were approximately 20 lots that have been developed there. And I think the number was somewhere around 25, Wayne, in the.
You've got 400 acres.
Yeah.
In the lower part of it.
I'm not talking about what has not been approved as approved. I'm talking about what has been approved, what's under development. What has not been presented to us for development, that's where we apply the things. And so I'm talking about that they're building homes on right now. And there's about 30, so there's approximately 50 lots that have been approved. And I think we have to kind of figure out what to do with that in a way that allows those citizens to effectively use their property, and that we look forward to the upcoming developments that are going to see and create a mechanism so we don't have this discussion again.
Well, if we have the ordinance in place, then whoever comes forward would have this
Sure.
ordinance in place.
That's what I'm saying.
So I think it should be consistent with everyone. I don't think that we just say, give a special treatment for these 25 that says you can have 100% of your property with a big stone wall around it, and everybody else has to comply with the new and improved version. I think that we just need to come up with an ordinance that will be for all of those 400 some lots that will be in the lower section of town.
And if we it's just frustrating to me that we want to force somebody to give up 5 feet on their lot.
Well, that's just an idea. That's not necessarily.
That's why I'm suggesting that it go back to the city, to the planning commission, so they can put some meat on this and do some discussion at a much better level than what we can. I think they're more capable of making these kind of decisions at the grassroots level than we are.
I think hearing the concerns that we have, that the council has, are you willing to take it back to the planning commission and discuss again?
There's different opinions about all of it. I'm not sure if we'll come back with anything else. Maybe a tweaking here and there, I don't know, but we'll be glad to take a look.
But you could at least answer the concerns that way and say.
I think that's the key.
That'd be great.
That's key, Mayor, that we make a conscious decision to do something or not to do something. And if the planning commission can do that for us, and they come back and say, you know, we're only changing these 5 or 6 words, but this is a conscious decision on how we're going to do it and what we recommend, I think that's a good starting point, an excellent starting point.
I think that percentage of lot should be considered, as well as the materials that it's built out of should be considered.
I think you have to be careful, because those homes that are along 11200, I would hope that we would allow them to build a stone wall as a noise barrier. So I think we have to be careful with the materials. And so, you know, that's one of the problems of having that major road there.
That's a good barrier.
That's a good point, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some things to consider, Wayne, and that would be great. The next item on the agenda is the update of the proposed development agreement between the City of Woodland Hills and Summit Creek. Do we have an update on that?
So we have met twice with the representatives from Summit Creek. We went through the initial comments that were made regarding the agreement. They sent back yesterday an update to the agreement, and we're to get them comments back. I will say that the version that I read yesterday was much better, much more in the direction that I think we want to go. My only concern was that it still felt a little one-sided as far as, you know, them getting what they want. I'm not sure that we're quite where we need to be, but I don't know that that's on Summit Creek's back. They don't have to do that. So we need to do
our
that.
attorney should go back with those issues, I think.
But I think we're closer to a clean document that we can then send on to our attorney and get their review done of it. So anyway, the process is moving forward.
Great, thank you.
And Bucky's online if he wants to.
Do you have anything you want to add, Bucky?
Just that we appreciate you guys working through this, and we're hoping that we can get this done this year. That's still our hope. So we appreciate all the work that's being put into this.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for working with us also. All right, the number 11, the deer population control. Bob.
All right, so we've all seen the numerous deer that are running around, and we've heard our citizens raise concerns over this. I reached out to our wildlife expert that we've adopted, Randy Larson, and he has a proposal that, with your agreement, we'll go off and continue to work and get it flushed out, but follow the model of Alpine in their bow hunt season, where there is a special licensing process that the city would administer that provides unique limitations on where you can hunt and that type of thing. Randy's going to get a copy of the training that Alpine has used, and we'll see if we can model after that and see what we can do to make sure that the herd is at a healthy, sustainable size and not get too big where they become diseased and sub health wise So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those, but
So do we know that we're at a non-healthy size? I mean, have we had an inventory, if you will, done?
Randy did not think that that was a concern to go off and to do an additional counting just upon the anecdotal information that's available to us. It's his opinion that we exceed a healthy herd size.
Sherry has her hand up.
Because when we have contacted the DWR in the past, they
It's up to you.
and they
Well,
also
that's the comment that he made, is that DWR is taking the stance that they don't want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
And that
Smart.
that we as a city have the right to enforce that, and that it doesn't have to be the hunt does not have to be held at a traditional hunting time period. We can have it when we want and need it. And
Doesn't DWR help with some of that? I thought that they helped Alpine with theirs.
they may have, but their basic, as Randy explained it, their basic approach is that they want to have as little to do with it as possible. They don't see that as within their scope of responsibilities.
Well, safety concerns, I think, would be a number one thing.
That's the city's thing, and that's where this special licensing process will address those safety issues.
I would say that as far as anecdotal things, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of deer. I'm not sure I'm seeing a huge increase of deer this year, but I have experienced a huge increase of hunters stalking around through the city.
Yeah.
Easy kill.
The one thing about this special licensing process, we can limit the number of hunters. We can say that we only want 10 hunters.
Right.
And we can pick and choose the 10 that we want.
Right.
And so we can control that. Other options, other than doing it this way, is that we can hire somebody to come in and do that. And we're going to pay around $600 for every deer that they shoot, or we can pay a little bit more than that, and they will take them someplace else. But DWR is not relocating deer because of the health issues of transporting those diseases to other herds.
Okay, Sherry, do you still?
Yeah, I'm still here. My question kind of goes along with Councilman Pratt's about, do we really know about the herd? I mean, since we've been living here for 4 years on and off, I've heard some citizens complain about the deer population. And in my mind, I guess I'm thinking because of the fire, our herd would have been reduced.
I don't know the answer to that, but Randy did not have any qualms of declaring that we had too many deer. We also talked about the mountain lion activity. There are at least 2 mountain lions that we've caught on camera that come down as far as Eagle Nest. They don't cross the Eagle Nest. He anticipates that there's probably another half a dozen large mountain lions up on the mountain. They have up around American Fork, they have 40 cameras up, and they have close to a dozen mountain lions up there. And so the more deer we have, the more likely those mountain lions are to expand their territory. And so that's one of the reasons to make sure that we have a appropriate size herd.
When the hunters come in, Bob, is it bow and arrow or is it rifle?
It's bow and arrow.
And are the deer cleaned on the property that they're shot on? And how is all that removed so it doesn't attract bear and cougar?
That's what we'll be able to determine. That's part of what we get to decide, because it will be our hunt. We will be able to control who it is, how many, when they hunt, and where they hunt within the city.
Okay, because just for your information, I haven't seen him or her, but I've seen the scat. And we've got a big bear up here.
Randy's anticipating that there's a half a dozen or so bears up on the, if not more. That if nothing, the fire has forced them closer to us instead of them being up on the other side of the mountain range, that they are now on our side, and that they are on the move. I have two big bucks that sleep in my backyard, and they both have collars on them.
Yeah,
But
we
they're
have the collar one up here too.
I see them just about every morning.
Well, doesn't DWR have big fences up on the top of the east bench to, I don't know if it's to control the herd or feed the herd? Do they drop feed in there? I know there's big fences up there somewhere.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a presentation from DWR years ago that said if you've got deer, you've got cougars and bears. They all go together. So we just need to learn that.
Yeah.
Cougar over on Sky Lake, so.
Randy has access to at least two trail cameras that are on the up mountain side of Eagle Nest, and they've caught mountain lions in those cameras more than once this year. You know, he just said that for some reason they have not decided to go across the Eagle Nest, but it's just a matter of time to where you have a young male that doesn't follow the rules, and they'll be in somebody's backyard looking at their dog. Okay.
Well, historically, we did have a cougar drag a mayor's dog off once.
Yep. So if there's not any big concerns about this, we'll continue to pursue it.
Okay.
And when we get some real solid information, we'll start presenting some plans and that type of thing. I think that by having Randy Larson as a citizen who's willing to volunteer to do this, we have one of the best people in the state to advise us.
That's good. I'll just admit I'm a hard sell.
I am too.
Because what you're going to do, I'll just put it out there, is you're going to kill somebody's pet. And a lot of residents have them. I mean, I know it's not proper.
I don't think. That's
the deer.
what you mean by that kind of pet.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because they've named him.
Well, and they're on their property every day.
You're not. You're not going to have a hunt for does. You're only going to have a hunt for bucks. I don't get that. Okay. Because
I've said my piece. Just
okay.
Alpine has a successful record that we're trying to model after.
Yeah, they want to be a city in the city.
All right. Thanks for your work on that. We'll just continue to move along and see. The next item on this agenda is the City History Project.
They're not though now. They're not though now. They're healthier now than they've been in 20 years that I've been here.
Let's talk about the history. And we'll add the history of the deer.
They
Let's
are
do that.
healthier this year than I've ever seen them.
All right.
They
So,
really look good.
The last time, our city we just celebrated our 40-year anniversary right before COVID. And we've had an increased number of our residents who lived here at the beginning, who have since moved or now passed away. We have a few of our residents who were raised here as children and now have come back and are living here, raising their own families. It's been brought to our attention by several people that they would like to update the history. The last time that we had a formal history written for the city was in 1996, when every city was required to have a history for the centennial of statehood. 100 years of statehood, 1996. And so our city, Georgia Blanchard, put that together at the time. And it's just a small little pamphlet, but it's well written. And so as we can, the communication committee would like to form a subcommittee similar to what Rhodes did with their subcommittee that would just focus on history. The past history, updating what we had in the past, as well as adding in the fire history. the more we get away from the fire, the more some memories have faded. And so having that subcommittee that can, from a variety of places throughout the city with perspective, some of those that are long time, some that are newer, some mid, whatever, just get a committee formed that can start interviewing some of these longtime residents before more of them pass away, as well as then actually compiling it as a history. And so I'm just bringing that to your attention that we're going to have this subcommittee started.
I think it's a great idea.
Love it.
Also, I have a whole binder of the original WUPA document.
Oh, good.
If you're interested.
Yes.
Has a lot of stuff about Bushnell and the city.
And those of us who
originally.
knew him well. Yes. Yes.
It's about the history of the town. You might.
Okay, that would be perfect. I will get that from you as well, both of you.
There's a folder here that has a history.
Yeah.
folder too. Take advantage of that.
Yes, and that's some of the stuff that Georgie used.
I don't want to give it up because it's got.
Right, we can just make a copy.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a copier here in town now. We were able to buy one. But we might have to budget for some more paper.
All right, wonderful. Thank you,
Thank
Carrie.
you.
That would be great. That would be a great thing from our communication team. All right. Number 13, the update on the fuel reduction project at the water tanks. Chief?
Yeah, it's going really good. We had a neighbor, John Stout, that donated his time and his machine to go up, pulled all those trees away from the other trees, got them all stacked and ready to burn. We're working on another little area at the top of the well road that we might be able to burn that pile also. So I've contacted county and we'll start zeroing in on time and we'll get everybody a couple day notice so we can get it out to the residents and just so they're aware.
So you'll let us know when?
It's too big. It's like big piles. Yeah.
Are
It'll
we
go
going
up
to have a
pretty
lot
good.
of
There,
signs
it's
around
really
the
dry.
city saying, hey, we're going to have this controlled burn type thing, whatever we want to say, but to communicate
Everybody
to our
doesn't call
citizens?
911.
Because we have a lot of citizens when there's clouds on the mountain that are worried about a fire.
Yeah, well, and I tell all the fire chiefs, if they see smoke up here, just head this way. So we'll see how many listen.
Yeah.
So you'll let us know in prior what
Yes.
day it is, so we can put it in the newsletter, we can put it through Everbridge, we can put it on social
How
media.
much days notice because it has to be a green burn day to burn
Right.
it.
Okay, just a few days' notice will be great,
So-
and then,
The other thing that might happen is we might give the notice and then not be able to do it.
mm-hmm,
So that happens all the time.
yep.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Number 14, an election update. Jody, would you just give us a brief summary of what's happened and what is happening?
Yeah, as of November 5th, the county, first of all, the county did our election this year, so it was not here in the city, nor was the city involved in the handling of ballots or the counting of ballots. That was all taken care of through the county. As of November 5th, the mayor went to 2 rounds, and Brent Winder was leading by 311, and Ben Hilliard was at 256. On the city council, there are 2 seats open. Seat 1 with a large lead was Janet Lunt, and seat 2 was Councilmember Kinnison. I want to thank everyone for coming out and voting. This year was probably one of the highest years we had as far as percentage-wise. We had over 54% of residents vote in this year's election.
So have they declared?
There will be another count that will come to us on Friday. This count, though, only will be, most of the ballots have been turned in that would be accepted. They had to be postmarked by November 1st. But this count on Friday will take into consideration any overseas ballots that were returned and postmark stamped by November 1st. as well as any possible provisional ballots. The city did not have that many provisional ballots that probably would impact the count. So I think.
Yeah, that's my question. Is there, of those to be counted, is there a statistical number there that would make a difference?
The only difference that I could possibly see would be the difference between second and third place in the elimination. That right now is at 2, the difference between that on the mayor, between Ben Hilliard and Mike Lauritsen. But the county pretty much assured me that they had all of ours counted.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. It was a exciting week. Number 15, the proposal to amend the city employee job policy manual. So I finally got Corbett's job description kind of done. I don't know if you saw, but it's really hard to sum him up in a few words.
I was surprised that we could keep it to, what was it, 2.5 pages?
That's easy. Fix it.
So there was a question mark at the bottom. I
Yeah.
think you're implying there's more.
No, the question mark was what it's going to be numbered.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, yeah, it looked pretty good.
I thought it looked.
Corbett, were you comfortable with it?
Really? Have you read it? It's got some good stuff. You can't do this anymore, Corbett. You remember?
Number 2 on the list is
No more.
nose pointing.
Yeah, it looked good, Mayor. I liked it. No.
The big bucks. Didn't you notice that?
I don't think you want to go there.
We are grateful for all you do, Corbett.
No, don't
It
expect
was-
that to start.
It was hours of wrestling through the information to try and sum it up in a reasonable job description. Even though we have unreasonable expectations of him. He performs them well. It's not on here, but I think Jody sent you an assignment to do the beginning sections also, to go through those. Did you have a chance to do that? And yeah, the employee manual,
I haven't done.
because I sent you the whole shebang last time.
I
and
haven't looked at every single one.
This
of
time
them. I've looked
she
at a
asked you to look at
sampling
like
them,
half of them.
Yeah.
and I feel very comfortable with that. And there is a certain amount of commonality, but from one to the next. And so
Right.
by looking at a certain number of
Right.
them, I think I'm very comfortable with where you've gone.
Yeah.
And the ones that we sent to the attorney, we just got back, and they didn't really change anything material. It's mostly, legal.
It's worded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seemed pretty consistent. I think I didn't say it as well as Bob said it, but it seemed very consistent
Thank you.
in language and in purpose.
Okay. So let's have the goal of we'll try and make sure you have everything that's can be done ready at the next meeting to approve, and we'll make it so. All right. Council member reports. Kinnison, CWPP.
Well, I could never find an empty bin to put brush in. They fill up pretty fast. I've been looking
That's
in
great.
them. I've been looking at them, and they're clean.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know from Craig if I'm fibbing, if you found any problems or. They're doing good. And they're more than 2 or 3 now?
There's 3.
Bins?
Yeah, we got 3 out right now.
Okay.
We got 3 bins out, and we have asked for if anybody's interested in having one put near their location, just to give me a call.
That's nice.
I'll see if I
Cool.
can't get one placed.
Okay. Anyway, it's going really well. Appreciate the citizens using them as
Mhm.
intended.
Yeah, I think it just took a little bit at the beginning to remember that you couldn't throw your bag of leaves
The bag.
in the bag
Yeah,
and
just
then
keep
throw the
the
whole
bag,
thing in.
yeah.
Just empty it out. Yeah, but I think it's been a success. I've heard quite a few comments from
Love it.
people who've appreciated it.
Okay.
Okay, Paul, the animal shelter.
Nothing to report. They had a meeting today, but I couldn't, I found out so late I couldn't get it in.
Okay. Carrie, Utah Lake and Emergency Management.
Yeah, so Utah Lake, we got to go on a really cool tour of the new Provo River Delta project. It's coming along. It's still going to be another couple of years, but what they're doing is going to be quite remarkable. They've taken some of that area. I can't remember how many acres it is, but where the Provo River comes into the lake, and they're making a man-made delta to restore the habitat for fish, and they're going to have walkways through there as well as trail systems, so it will allow that river to come up. And the June suckerfish, which was on the endangered list, has been
revitalized,
delisted. That's the word, delisted, and it's too threatened now. And so, which is hardly ever happens from the federal government, because once they have it on the endangered list, that's it. And so, because of the work of the Lake Commission as well as the June Sucker Recovery Program, there's been some good things happening there. So you will see that. Well, and the reason that's important is because that's a native fish to Utah, to Provo River, and the health of the fish determines the health of so many other entities in the ecosystem. So this is a big deal for everyone, and there will be some walkways, etc., and it will be a very nice place for people to come with their families. They're building some towers where you can walk up into them and be able to look over the whole area and stuff. So it'll be a nice interactive place. There will be some places for field trips and family trips, etc.
Will they be similar to the Summit Creek Towers?
Yes, but taller.
Taller. So were you laughing because the sucker has been delisted?
Yeah. I'm just like, there are all kinds of jokes in there that are
Yes.
inappropriate, and I just can't go there.
I know. No, the first time, I've been on that commission 6 years, right? So, so the first time when I kept hearing it, and I'm thinking, why do you care? Those are like junk fish, right? But the more I've gotten to know that they're part in the ecosystem and their ability to show other areas of concern throughout the whole river system, and the fresh water makes a difference, because they've been cleaning up the lake. They've been doing a lot of things with sediments, and you have not only the nitrates from the farming, you also have then the sediment from other the birds, the cows, everything.
Yeah.
So it all plays into each other on how the scientists go crazy in that lake. They just love it. And I get to sit in lots of meetings with scientists.
It's always good to sit around a bunch of scientists.
I know. It has been an interesting experience, but there's some good things that are happening around the lake. Some trail systems, as you know, that they eventually are going to have a 72-mile trail all the way around the lake. Every city that abuts the lake right now is putting in their section of the trail, so that then the county will just have to put in some of theirs. Also, the Phragmite population is being taken down. The one that will be exciting, two cities that are really pretty exciting to watch will be Vineyard as well as Saratoga Springs. They're considering putting gas at their marinas so that people, because right now we have this huge lake. Every single freshwater lake in the state the water volume could fit into Utah Lake. That's how big it is. You don't really always realize it. So this way, people, when they're going around, will be able to stop, eat, and they're going to put restaurants in. Vineyard's thinking of restaurants and things, so you could go out boating, go to a restaurant. It'll be fun. And they're putting in beaches, so they're really trying to improve. So it'll be nice. Emergency management takes a lot of time, and I go to a lot of trainings. County is they're getting used to me, I think, Craig, aren't they? We are working with them. There's some different things because, of course, my role in the city council, my role is emergency manager, and then my role in the nonprofit VOAD role, which is an ecclesiastical calling for those nonprofits and interfaith groups that are involved in emergency management coming together. I'm kind of seeing where some loopholes are. So on Friday, I'll be meeting with, his name is Jeff Anderson. He's the Commission of Public Safety for the state. And he's asked for my input on some of the ways that they can spend ARPA money to help small cities with emergency management. So we will be meeting with him and some state legislators on how we might change some laws this next session. House Bill 96 last time required every city to have one, but there's probably 225 cities that don't have one, and there's no funding for them. And so this way, we're hoping to use some ARPA funds for some training and some possibilities of I'm working with Jones and DeMille on the possibility of making templates for cities so that we at least can, all the smaller cities can have some training that would be paid for, as well as ongoing help with their city plans. So those are two things that I'm bringing, some of the things from our city that Craig and I have talked about lots to then the state that can come back and maybe help a lot of other cities as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Bob, 911 and South Utah Valley.
911 is still struggling with growth pains and with poaching pains.
Oh.
They have a lot of problem with surrounding districts poaching the people that they've trained. And the surrounding districts typically have higher salaries, and so we're just looking at things that we can do to improve work-life quality and not impact the budget as much. Solid Waste had a meeting today with the Finance and Technical Committee on the new transfer station. That design is 90%, and the budget is at the same percent of maturity. They're getting ready to go out for bid on that. The biggest challenge is the rate of increase of different materials. They've got some materials that are that have gone up over 200% in price in the last 18 months, and
Wow.
that equates to about on some items as much as $300,000 to $400,000 increase on just one little piece of the whole building. The area where the building is going to be built is being roads are being added, sewers are being added, and so that area out beyond the airport is growing quickly. Sunrock already has a building up in that area. One of the big things from the budget standpoint is how do we afford the building without raising rates, and we think that we've got that under control, but the original cost was estimated at around 30 million, and with the inflation things, it's now up to about 43 million.
Wow.
So that's a huge increase. But because of the experience of the dedication and insightfulness of the district manager, Terry Fickler, he's able to work miracles there and make things work well. So that's moving along quickly. Once we start construction, hopefully next year, it'll take about 18 to 24 months to finish the building.
Thank you. Dave, Sumwa and the Mount Nebo Water Board.
Yeah, so Sumo had an emergency meeting about 3 weeks ago, which they have the free version of Zoom, and so it gets cut off after 50 minutes, and the meeting went long. But I also then needed to meet with Summit Creek, so I didn't get to hear the rest of the meeting because it blew us all out of the Zoom session. Then about 15 minutes later, they emailed us all and said, get back onto the same link. Except it was too late. I was now on the other meeting. So they were basically planning on, or they were going to make a vote to sell a parcel of land. But I didn't know exactly where the parcel of land was either. And then as far as the Mount Nebo Water Board, we haven't had any meetings.
Okay. SCSD, they're still working through some of their legal finagling with the cities, the 3 cities, Salem, Payson, and Spanish Fork. They're about nailed down a good agreement with Spanish Fork. It's just going back and forth right now between the attorneys. They're wordsmithing, but have some good confidence on the progress of that. And there's not a lot to work out with Salem, so I'm hoping that they'll be able to do that too. But there's a lot of contention between them and Payson, and it goes both ways. So hopefully they can get that worked out. And then MagCog, they're just like coming along doing their thing. They're in the middle of the TIP approval process right now, which is or not approval, but evaluation, which is where everybody turns in their proposed projects. And so Jeremy's done a really great job getting our trail project in there, and we have a good shot.
Yeah, we went today.
So thank you, Doral.
Yeah, it wasn't totally good news, but we don't have a trail system potential here that greatly helps everybody,
Right.
neighbors. So, but they gave us some good ideas though.
Good.
Jeremy's not
Potentially,
giving up.
Salem could connect on if they saw that we had one.
Well,
it would then greatly expand.
I know the mayor of Salem would really love to connect with us. He's talked to me more than once. The good thing about this is this isn't our only chance. I mean, if when they come along, when they rank everything, we may not get really high, but we may have a better chance the next time around. So,
one of the guys we met with lives in Elkridge, and so he's well aware of why we need it.
Yeah.
And what benefit it'll be to the area.
Right. So,
Mayor, just to add to your SCSD, in the newsletter, we did put about their annual holiday food drive.
Yes.
That's going on. And so it started on the 1st, but we got a notice from the deputy clerk, and we're putting it in. It goes till December 17th.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
that our city can participate.
Thank you. And I think everybody got that notice in their bills also. So,
Yeah. And then, we've been having some problems with the bills, but they'll be getting out. Then the other thing with MAG and COG, I know that there was a presentation recently on a compact between the cities for prosperity and growth. They asked me if we had yet had a chance to consider it. And I told them that as a city, we could only consider something if it's in resolution form. So they should be sending it to all the cities so that we can consider it for a resolution in some, after Valley Visioning did all of their work throughout the county, they've come up with, I think it's 8 points that they would like all the cities to say, yes, we acknowledge that these are some of the things that came out of their work over the 3 years. And so that we can then maybe go forward as a entire community with those things in mind. But I don't have it in front of me to share, but just so we know that it'll be coming probably through the mayor, whether it's through Wendy or the new mayor, it will be coming down the road for us to consider.
right. Any possible upcoming things or other
So-
things that you want to?
I had an interesting conversation with Michael Miramontes last night at the mailboxes. And he has some really interesting ideas around economic development and or lobbying of state people. And I personally have enough on my plate for that, but I think it might be useful to maybe engage some of our citizens like him who want to do some lobbying?
You send me his contact information. I just put in I'm working on, almost finished, working on a grant with UDOT, asking for about $225,000 for
Well,
something.
and that's nice. He doesn't want to be involved in grants.
I know, but that's still a help lobby.
What he really
some of that
wants
stuff.
is he wants to lobby the state legislature to change the sales tax equation on behalf of bedroom communities. So I know, big mountain. but-
Well, right now, that's also going through the league and through, I talked with several legislators recently about that, but there's a heavy group that's doing it, so we can use his expertise if he wants to, or his opinion on that. So yeah, send it to me.
Well, he's kind of what I would call an organizer.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, he
his,
is.
that's what he would
Okay.
be. And so I think he could organize some, well, not just some, but it might take all of our citizens, to just in an organized campaign kind of a way to see if we can turn some things around. So
If we're talking about campaigning to get things changed, we need to see what we can do to have the state look at the impact on their unfunded mandates on cities like us.
Right. Well, I find myself, as you know, I sit on the board for the league and one of 18 people, and I try to represent all the little towns. And I always find myself saying, hey, did you realize what this means? Do you know what that is going to do to citizens like us? And so sometimes we get to change the way things are going, but that's one of the things that is very at the top of the list this time around, is looking at the sales tax formula, as well as, there's property tax, and people say, oh yeah, there's property tax. The state is trying to do some other things with sales tax that would or would not benefit us going forward. So I would appreciate his input on that, and maybe see if there is a committee statewide that he could be a part of as a citizen group. So send me his information.
Okay.
That's great.
So he's moved here full time, right?
Oh, it's Michael.
Pretty much.
So we never know whether
That's
he
what I
lives
thought
in
is-
They've
here,
spent
California.
a considerable amount of time at their
He was
California
in
home.
a
and all
USC shirt. I was really hoping that.
They're trying to get it. They've been moving all their stuff out and painting and trying to get it on the market. So
I just think it's fun.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard.
Yes.
They've seen the light.
All right.
Well, be careful, because he's one of those Californians that's moved here, and so he's got a lot of California ideas,
Yes.
which I'm not really a fan of, but I love his energy.
Yes.
Okay, so you'll send it to
Yep.
me.
All right. Well, then, if we don't have anything else big to discuss, let's take let's take a 10-minute break tonight, and we'll start up our formal council meeting at 8:10.
Right. Yeah, I said, my son only has 2 looks: suit, tie, and homeless. It's his only two things.
Most people see me when I'm not in my suit and tie, they think I'm homeless.
My father.
Which is good, then they.
My father was that
Most
way.
people who see me in your suit and tie. Yeah.
Did I tell you one
I answer
time?
the door like this, they ask me if the owner is home.
One time he was dressed like this, and we went to Home Depot to buy something, and then I wanted to stop at Smith's in Springville on our way home. And so he says, I don't want to go in all yucky like this. I'll just wait out front. It was summertime, and they had that patio furniture, and he sat down, and they came and they said, sir, no sleeping here. You'll have to move along. He's like, my wife's shopping.
Yeah, they just, you can't sit on our furniture, yeah.
Hey, Jody, are we ready? All right, everybody got their mics on? Let's get up and going. All right, welcome everyone to the city council meeting for the city of Woodland Hills. It is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. Our whole council is here in attendance tonight. I am Mayor Wendy Prey, and it is about 8:17. Anyway, welcome you all here. We'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Dave Pratt, will you lead us in that? And then Carrie Malkovich, would you be willing to offer an invocation?
Mm-hmm.
I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be gathered here tonight to discuss the business of our city. We're grateful for the community that we live in, both in the beauty of the nature that surrounds us and as well as the individuals who choose to call Woodland Hills their home. We ask for thy guidance as we discuss issues in our city and those that affect each of us in different ways, that we might be mindful of those ways and be thoughtful in our discussion and in our votes. Again, we are thankful for our community and the safety therein, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you both. Before we move on, I just going to make you indulge me one probably last time as we stand and pledge our allegiance to that flag, how grateful I am to live in the country we live in, where we have so much self-determination. We had an election this week and Veterans Day, and I have both a father and a son that are veterans, and there are a lot of boys that died young to give us the lives we've got today and to give us the freedoms we have, and we are so blessed. And I'm grateful that we, as a country, try to help people around the world too, but we are just very, very blessed by people who've sacrificed for us, and I am very grateful to them. All right, public comment. I know that we have Aaron Lowe. Did you have a comment you'd like to make? Just to remind you that 2 minutes.
So I just wanted to express one concern I've had recently over the last few weeks. At the bottom of Summit Creek, with all the development going on down there and the roadway having been chopped away for a portion of it, I get that all had to be done, and that's understandable, and it is what it is. But the thing that really concerned me is that there was a lot of vehicles and specifically dumpsters in the roadway. So it was this dangerous weaving in and out, especially the dumpsters that don't have any reflective stuff on it. I've noticed that the dumpsters that Doral's put out, or Craig, for the waste, for the green waste, have always been on the side of the road, not in the actual roadway. And I think it'd be good to talk to the developers down there and say, if you're going to have cars, and I get contractors have somewhere that they've got to park, but especially at night when it's hard to see, if there's no reflective stuff on things in the roadway, it gets really difficult.
Okay. Thank you. Good point.
Good
To
point.
Aaron's point, it's a narrow road.
It is a narrow road.
So we need to enforce the same parking rules there that we do anywhere else. We had the same problem on Eagle Nest.
Yep.
So we just need to enforce those same rules.
Okay. Thank you.
You too.
Yeah. We told you no nose pointing.
So is there, what can be done about that with you two?
Well, we have to be honest. Yeah, the dumpsters should be. I'll go down with the dumpsters. We are constantly talking to the people down there. And again, I was down there again last week, at the end of the week. They were bringing in suspended slabs. They
Right.
all parked on one side. They had the big truck back in the train. It was still one lane. I mean, it's.
Right.
Yeah, we just asked them to really be considerate, open it up for residents that are going down.
Well, and those temporary bringings in and droppings off are one thing, but planting a dumpster somewhere is a little bit more. And I think Robert Nelson is generally pretty willing to help us with that too.
There's 2 in the street right now.
Yeah. Yep, there are.
Well, and as we get snow, I'm concerned with the snow plow and, being able to snow
Well,
plow,
run down and
being
put our
able
green waste in 'em.
to get around as people come and it gets slick. If the snow plows have had to go around,
Yeah.
then they're moved, then there's slick spots.
Okay, wait a minute. Time out. During the winter, there is no parking on the
Right.
streets.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Right?
So no parking, and that needs. to
And
be
no
emphasized.
dumpsters.
So
You cannot park, you cannot park on the streets during the winter.
The construction traffic, they have to.
No, they can't. Then they stop construction. I mean, I feel that strongly about it. During the winter, when we have to plow, the plow cannot do this junk. But there is, that's by ordinance, no parking on the streets during the winter.
as a snowplow driver, most of the time you can get around, but there is no guarantee that you're not going to redesign the vehicle. So if you want to take the chance, park on the street, and maybe you'll get a new style of car or truck.
Well, you know, and we do
Your
have,
choice.
we do have several places where there could potentially be issues where people are building right now. And I think maybe, Craig, the point is just make sure those builders and the subs specifically know, you know, get over as far as you can. Don't park in the middle of the road. Make sure that, you know, whatever, because we have that on our big corner on Sky Lake too. You know, that's going to be an issue if it's a very slick day and people are coming around that corner, very well could slide right off into whoever is just standing there, which makes me nervous. So I know that that's the same case in lots of areas, and we do want to be somewhat flexible when it comes to allowing them to build. But at the same time, if it causes public safety concerns, I think they should be.
Well, what we've done is, like, for one on Skylake, he's got enough room to park vehicles on site.
Right.
He's made it wide enough, the driveway's wide enough, and he's agreed to do that.
Yeah.
I hope he leaves that little dirt berm up there for a while, because I think that would be very helpful.
If you want to instruct the sheriff, if the mayor wants to have the sheriff write tickets for everybody parked in the winter, that's fine.
We drivers, if we have somebody that's parking in a dangerous spot, we will call the dispatch number and ask them, and I don't know any time they've ever given anybody a ticket, they've just come out and talked to them.
Get 'em to
But
move.
the corner that you're talking about, Carrie, is a very rough corner on the snow plows,
Mhm.
because depending on the direction you're going, you're just sliding around, even though you've got.
Yep.
Yeah.
You've got.
And
all
It's a
kinds of-
controlled
And it's
slide
a
anyway.
very narrow
Yeah.
corner.
And
I
so
mean,
we try to build the berm on the outside of there with the snow, so that we have something to kind of keep us in
we
the.
have a
in the-
bumper.
In the bumpers.
The building down there that we can just have them park in the cul-de-sacs and the side streets and shit.
That,
The number of homes that are being built right now was on Summit Creek. So
But
they
we,
would be,
I guess,
they
yes,
would be down in front of Robert Nelson's. It's kind of the cul-de-sac.
here's the problem. We purposely made it so that we minimize the number of driveways. In fact, I think with the second batch, we actually had Robert Nelson redesign things so that there weren't driveways coming out on the Summit Creek Drive.
There were fewer.
So I'm sorry, I don't understand why we can't tell the builders, you cannot park on Summit Creek Drive.
I think it's unrealistic.
Well, and I don't expect you to write a ticket, but I think, again, this is, I don't want to have one of our somewhat new now snowplows hit a car.
Well,
I just think-
Or hit a dumpster.
Or hit a dumpster.
It's not that you're going to hit it necessarily. You know, I've seen numerous times, a lot of times, where I'm 10 feet away from a garbage can, and I'm shooting a rooster at it, and it's going 15 feet out into the woods, and I'm 10 feet away from it. And when there's cars parked on there, I have no qualm about dumping snow in front of them and back of them, you know, because I've got to get through there.
Yeah.
But you know, from the contractor standpoint, they're hauling a lot of stuff back and forth between their trucks and the work site. And I think we need to work to accommodate them. And typically when it is a snow day, there's not very many contractors working. dumpsters continue to be a problem, but they don't come to work oftentimes, at least in droves, when it's a heavy snow day. Right. So,
Well-
but I think we need to ask them to park on one side and one side only.
Which is what we tried to do.
And I think
before.
there's a big difference between somebody parking somewhere for an hour while they're unloading stuff and plunking their car there for the day or their truck there for the day.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And having talked to some of the contractors up on Eagle Nest, they felt totally out of no control on where their subs are going to park.
Right.
They can talk to them, and their snubs and their subs will snub them. Try to say that 10 times fast. And so it's very, very hard to control.
It is.
And so I think it's more of maybe communicating. Maybe we need to put up some sandwich board signs up there that say, don't park on this side of the road or something. I don't know. Well, we'll just blow them over.
It is hard to control subs. I mean, 28 years ago when we were building our house, we couldn't get our subs to quit burning their garbage.
Right. Start a little
So-
fire to keep that out.
Back to that point then, do we have the ordinances in place where the sheriff could ticket cars if
I have something to say to that. We've had some issues with our ordinances because we contract with the sheriff department. We also contract with the justice court to enforce those. And for some reason, there's been this little gap. I had a meeting this last week, which I forgot to report on, with the sheriff and with one of the county commissioners. And because I said, we're just really frustrated that our deputy can come up here and can't always issue a citation for a criminal offense. Now, a nuisance offense, Craig can handle, but more of a criminal offense, we need our sheriff's deputy to be able to do that. And what Deputy Dunson has told us is if a deputy comes up here, if it's not in the system from the county attorney's side, then it doesn't show up on their computer because they have a new computer system. So Elkridge has gone through the process of putting theirs on. They told us it would take a few months to get ours on. I told the sheriff I wanted on ASAP. And so they're working on seeing what they can do from their side as a commission. The commissioner said they had no idea this was happening. And so I think it's a new computer program that they're using. And so they're going to expedite it for us if possible. So I'm going to follow up with them this week and ask what they've done.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Jody, do we have any more comments? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda for the October 26th council minutes.
I move that we approve it for October 26, 2021, city council minutes.
Okay, I have a motion from Otley and a second from MacArthur. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes and carries unanimously. Business and discussion issues. First thing is the ordinance amending City Code Title 10-6A-1, allowing the planning commissioner alternate to vote.
I move that we allow the planning commissioner alternate to vote.
Do you want to also waive the reading? or-
Yes, and please waive the reading. I'm having a rough time tonight.
I'll second both of those.
Okay. So I have a motion from Malkovich and a second from MacArthur. Any other questions or discussions on allowing the planning commissioner alternate to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Just a question, is one alternate enough? Has that been working?
It has been.
Okay.
And that's for ordinance.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and you can take a vote with a quorum, which is three.
True.
Do you really want to ever take a vote with only one standing planning commissioner there? You know, I'm not, so that's probably reasonable. All right. The next item is ordinance, the repealing code, city code 10-1-4B and 10-11-2CG. those have to do with the CCNRs.
So I will make a motion to approve those with the full wording, not the partial wording that was in the packet.
Yeah.
With the addition that we add to our building permit process, a checklist item that notifies them of the possibility that there might be CCNRs for their plat and that they need to review those.
And I would second that, also adding the wordage that
Yeah.
that Wayne gave us from the Summit Creek wording for their HOA. So
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm
amendment?
okay with that.
Okay.
Sorry, so the motion is that that language be included in the application?
yeah, that language is included in the application with the checklist and that
Not part
our,
of the ordinance.
no, the ordinance would be whenever the regulations of this zoning title impose higher standards than are required by any other ordinance or regulation, then those requirements shall govern.
Is that the way it should read? Okay. That's what I have here. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. Motion passes and carries here. The next item on the agenda is the ordinance amending the city fencing ordinance, and I think we agreed to send that back to the planning commission for some further consideration. Thank you for being willing to do that, Wayne. The next thing is ordinance adopting the employee policy manual. I'm asking that we just tonight approve the job description for the public works director.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion from Pratt and a second from Otley. Any other questions or discussion on that?
Just to clarify, with the other ones, you then send it to the city attorney to look over. Is that the same as in this one? I mean, are we going to approve it and then the city attorney says we got to make a couple of changes, then we have to reapprove it, or?
I think we approved this one because there's not a lot of legal stuff in this. The stuff that's has more legal concerns, we have sent. So that's the plan.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that. Bob. All right. That is all we have on our agenda. I do think that we have a need tonight to hold a closed session to discuss something that might involve the character and or, how do you say it, reputation? Is that of city personnel?
Jody?
So if
Character or competence.
character or competence. Thank you, Chris.
I will make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
Okay, a motion from Pratt and a second from Otley. Roll call vote. Paul?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Doral?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We will go into closed session. We do not anticipate any business happening after the closed session. Anybody that wants to remain can, and we will invite you back in when we're done. But other than that, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And